What would you do if you walked into a hotel you secretly owned, only to be treated like you didn't even belong in the lobby? The rain had dried, but the streets still held the memory of it. Wet asphalt gleamed under Charleston's dim evening lights like a stage after the curtain had dropped. Ava Carter stepped out of the black sedan, her sneakers making soft, deliberate contact with the pavement. Her charcoal hoodie was zipped to her chest, hands tucked inside like a shield. The air smelled like damp concrete, jasmine, and something older like the bones of the city were exhaling. The Fairline Hotel towered ahead of her. Glass gleamed, polished stone glinting like polished pride. She paused before the revolving door. This building was hers, percent enough to control, not enough to be seen. She entered. The lobby looked exactly like the dream she'd drawn years ago. Marble floors, brushed brass railings, velvet lounge chairs arranged with surgical precision. A fireplace flickered in the back, jazz hummed from hidden speakers. It was perfect. But perfection only mattered until people filled the space. Ava approached the front desk. Her footsteps echoed clean, quiet, sure. Behind the counter stood a young man, early 20s, hair sculpted with precision, navy blazer too snug across his shoulders. The name tag read Brent. He looked up, blinked, then looked down again, tapped the keyboard with bored fingers. Ava cleared her throat gently. "Hi, I have a reservation. Name's Carter." Brent didn't look up. "First name?" "Ava." Tap, tap, frown. Nothing under Ava Carter. Try just Carter, or under Rowan Hospitality Group. It should be for a suite. His tone changed, cool, clinical. "You have a confirmation number?" "No," Ava said calmly. "It was booked internally." "You should see a note, Suite 1701, tap, tap." Sigh. "There's a booking under Rowan Hospitality, but that's reserved for senior execs, not guests." Ava let the silence stretch. "That's me," she said. He blinked, smirked. "You're with corporate?" "I'm the CEO." The smirk faltered. He reached under the desk and tapped a small button. "Just a moment," he said, disappearing into the back. Ava turned slightly. Two guests had entered behind her, white, well-dressed. Smiles, small talk, keys in hand within seconds. She waited. Her shoulders stiffened as Officer Blake, the security guard, stepped into view mid-50s. Ex-military posture, eyes trained to assess before greet, hand on belt. Not his weapon, just close enough to say what he thought. He scanned her outfit before locking eyes. "Ma'am, is there a problem?" "No." "Just trying to check in," Ava said evenly. "I've already explained that." Blake didn't relax, just lingered. The office door opened behind the desk. Sharon, the night manager, appeared, mid-40s. Blonde, clipboard like a sword, lipstick too red for 9 p.m. She approached with polished calm. "Evening? I hear there's some confusion." "No confusion," Ava said. "Just checking into a suite under Rowan Hospitality. My name, Ava Carter." Sharon smiled, but it never reached her eyes. "Unfortunately, we can't assign that suite without prior corporate confirmation. I'm the CEO." "I arranged it." Sharon paused. "Do you have ID?" Ava handed over her license and business card. Sharon barely looked. Glanced, handed them back. "You look different than I expected," she said. Ava didn't blink. "What did you expect?" Sharon hesitated. "We've had impersonation issues before." "You understand?" "No," Ava said. "I don't." Sharon gestured toward the lounge. "Perhaps you could wait over there while we verify." "I'll stand here." Blake inched closer. Brent reappeared, hanging in the shadows. Two bar guests glanced over, whispering. That was the moment they decided she didn't belong. Then a shuffle. From behind the front desk, a quiet presence. Miss Thelma, housekeeping. Late 50s, dark skin, hair in a tight bun. Uniform spotless. She stepped forward, grabbed supplies. Sharon snapped, "Miss Thelma, you don't need to be here right now." Miss Thelma didn't answer. She looked at Avaquiet, knowing, and whispered as she passed, "You just stand still, baby. Let them dig their hole." Ava almost smiled, but Brent said, "You sure this is your hotel?" "I didn't say it was mine," Ava replied. "I said I run it." Sharon folded her arms. "It's odd. The reservation came from corporate, but your name wasn't listed. It wouldn't be... I booked it anonymously. Why would a CEO do that? To see how the staff treats strangers." Blake tensed. Brent scoffed. Sharon blinked. "You expect us to believe you're conducting a secret audit?" Ava looked through him. "I expect you to treat people with respect, whether they own the building or not." The glass doors swung open. A man entered. Older, sharp eyes, wireframe glasses. Dressed simply. He paused. "Evening, ma'am," he said. "Mr. Whitaker," Ava nodded. He glanced around. "Back in the day, this place made me feel like I didn't belong. Looks like not much has changed." She studied him. "But you're here now." He nodded. "My granddaughter just got hired here. Came to see how they'd treat someone like her." He looked towards Sharon, Brent, Officer Blake. "Seems I came on the right day." Silence fell like stone. Miss Thelma returned, set a glass of water beside Ava. No words, just presence. Ava dialed. "This is Carter," she said into the phone. "Activate the Charleston file, now." She placed the phone gently on the counter, then stepped back, quiet and unshaken. The cold pressed harder as Ava stepped aside, her phone still warm from the call. Her breath fogged against the lobby's glass, but her mind slipped somewhere older, a hallway lit by flickering fluorescence, tile floors scrubbed so clean they stung her eyes. She was 16, pushing a mop down a hospital corridor. Her mother, in oversized pale scrubs, was leaning over a gurney, rinsing blood off her gloves. "You didn't have to come," her mom had said. "I wanted to," Ava had answered, but it wasn't true. She had to. The power at home had been out for 2 days. Rent overdue. The fridge smelled like sour milk and stress. They needed the overtime. Her first paycheck went into a jar marked, "Own something." A dare she stared at every morning. And now she was here, CEO, still fighting to be seen in her own building. She stepped forward again. Still standing, still here. By 24, she had folded sheets in motels where cigarette burns outnumbered clean towels. By 26, she was walking 7 blocks in heels for a front desk interview just to be told she didn't match the brand aesthetic. She remembered smiling, nodding politely, walking out slowly so they wouldn't see her shake. That man never asked what she built after that. By 30, she was managing 3 properties. By 35, she ran more keys than the man who once told her she didn't look the part. And still, tonight, she was standing in a lobby where they saw sneakers, not ownership. Brent saw a walk-in. Sharon saw a question mark. Officer Blake saw a threat. She looked at her reflection in the glass, jaw tight. But not breaking. Inside, the lobby buzzed in soft chaos, people whispering, moving around her, trying to pretend nothing unusual was happening while everything screamed otherwise. Then came the voice. Not loud, steady, controlled. "You sure this is your hotel?" Brent had asked. And she'd answered simply, "I said I run it." The weight of that line still hung in the air. Miss Thelma returned again, no words, just presence. She lingered behind a velvet partition, mop in hand, eyes sharp and still. The kind of sharp forged by decades of swallowing disrespect. Ava's fingers brushed the rim of the glass of water. Not from thirst, from principle. Then movement. Brent stiffened behind the counter. A notification pinged on his screen. He clicked, froze. Ava watched him without blinking. He turned to Sharon. Sharon? She walked over quickly. He whispered something. Her eyes snapped to Ava, then vanished into the back office. Ava stood still. No need to chase. She didn't have to knock on doors. She built them, minutes stretched like wire. The silence was loud now, heavy, revealing. From the hallway, another presence emerged. A young woman stood near the corridor to staff quarters, slim frame, ash blonde ponytail, oversized blazer that didn't quite fit, Emily. The intern. She was holding her phone chest high, screen glowing, tilted slightly forward. She was recording. Ava's eyes met hers through the glass. Emily froze, then slowly lowered the phone. Ava re-entered the lobby, still calm, still grounded. Miss Thelma didn't move, still stationed nearby, like she was guarding something sacred. She had seen this before, not just tonight, but years ago. The couple from Charlotte, the suite they were denied, even though she'd just finished cleaning it, complete with champagne on ice. She had whispered an apology in the hallway. The woman didn't respond, just held her husband's hand tighter and walked out with her head high. That night haunted Miss Thelma. Tonight echoed it, but tonight the woman stayed. Emily stepped forward. I'm sorry, she stammered. I shouldn't have. Ava cut her off with a look, calm, measuring, not cruel. Why were you filming? Emily swallowed. Because I didn't know what else to do. I saw how they were treating you. It didn't feel right. You recorded it. I don't know if I'll post it, she added quickly. I just wanted a record. From behind, Miss Thelma's voice cut through soft but firm. Then keep the record. The truth doesn't need permission. Emily turned, startled. But what if it backfires? Miss Thelma gave a sad smile. Then at least you'll know you didn't back down. The words lingered, heavy, necessary. Ava checked the lobby clock. 5 minutes since the call. She stepped toward Emily. You're not wrong to be scared, Ava said, but fear doesn't make you a coward. Silence does. Emily didn't speak. But her spine straightened, then movement again. Brent's screen lit up with another notification. He clicked, read, paled. He turned to Sharon's office. Still no return. The tension in his face shifted from defense to something else, maybe doubt, maybe regret. He stepped forward, past the desk, toward Miss Thelma. Can I talk to you? He asked quietly. She didn't nod, didn't flinch. Just stared. Did you think I meant to be that way? He said. A long silence. Miss Thelma finally answered, I think you didn't ask yourself who she might be. He lowered his eyes. I didn't know. That's the problem, she snapped. You didn't know, and you acted like you did. You saw sneakers and skin, and you made a decision in 3 seconds. He blinked. I wasn't trying to insult her. Intent doesn't erase damage. She leaned closer, voice low but sharp. You think she hasn't seen that smirk before? You think she hasn't watched people press the call button the second she walks in? Brent didn't speak. She's the reason you get a paycheck, Miss Thelma added. And she stood there, patient, calm, and you treated her like a problem. Brent's throat worked, but no words came. You've still got time to learn, she said. But learning starts when you own the mess, not pretend it never happened. She walked away. Measured steps. Final ones. He stood in the middle of the lobby, alone. Not humiliated, but changed. Behind him, the glass doors spun open. 2 men entered. One tall, coat folded neatly over one arm. The other, lean, dark suit, tablet in hand. They didn't ask for directions. They already knew where to go. Richard Cole, Marcus James. Everything was about to change. The atmosphere cracked the moment they stepped in. Richard Cole walked like a man with weight behind every footstep. Marcus James scanned the room with calm precision, a tablet clutched in one hand. Brent straightened instinctively. Officer Blake dropped his arms. Emily froze. Even the jazz music seemed to lower its volume, as if the speakers knew something bigger had arrived. Ava didn't turn. She didn't need to. She stood exactly where they left her, centered, still, steady. Richard spoke first. "You good?" Ava nodded slowly. "I stayed. They didn't." Marcus was already flipping open a folder, removing a printed memo. "We sent the audit notice 2 weeks ago," he said. "Told every property a surprise executive review could happen at any time, in any form. No uniforms, no name tags. Just human decency as the test." Ava's voice was flat. "Looks like they failed." A beat passed. Sharon finally emerged from the back hallway. She took 2 steps into the open, then stopped cold when she registered who was standing there. Her clipboard dipped slightly in her hand. Richard's tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. "Manager Sharon Owens?" "Yes," she said quickly, almost too quickly. He didn't ask for confirmation. He already knew. Why was our CEO standing outside her own lobby, being questioned by security and denied access to her suite? Sharon opened her mouth. "It wasn't confirmed." "She gave her name," Marcus cut in. "She showed ID. She booked it under corporate, same as every executive does. We've had impersonators before." "You didn't ask for confirmation," Ava said, eyes sharp. "You asked me to step aside. You summoned security. You made me feel like a trespasser." Richard stepped forward. "We're not here to argue. We're here to document failure." Brent's hands trembled against the desk. Emily held her breath. Marcus placed the memo on the counter like a court order. "You all had one job. Treat every guest like they matter, especially when you think they don't." Ava turned to Sharon. "You looked at me and saw a mistake. Now what do you see?" Sharon didn't answer. The lobby, once designed for quiet elegance, now echoed with silent reckoning. Every velvet cushion and gold-trimmed light fixture felt like props on a collapsing stage. Marcus stepped to the front desk and slid a second paper across the counter. Linda, now Sharon, stared at it. Her fingers hovered above the edge, then recoiled. She didn't need to read it. She already knew. Emily stepped forward hesitantly. "There's more." Marcus turned. "What do you mean?" "I recorded it too," she said, holding up her phone. "From the side." "I didn't know what else to do." Ava raised a brow. "You couldn't let it slide." Emily nodded. Richard didn't hesitate. "Send that to my office immediately." Sharon stepped back, desperate. "You're seriously going to use video from an intern?" Ava's voice was cool. "I'm going to use the truth. I don't care whose hands it comes from." Sharon's tone sharpened. "We were doing our jobs." "No," Ava replied. "You were doing your version of the job. The version that excludes people who don't look like the brochure." Brent looked up, panic flickering behind his eyes. "Are we fired?" Marcus didn't blink. "Not yet." Sharon turned to Richard. "I've been with this company 11 years. And one exposed night undid it," Ava finished. "This wasn't new behavior. This was just the first time someone stayed long enough to let the mask fall off." Officer Blake took a quiet step back. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Ava's eyes shifted to Miss Thelma. "You knew?" The older woman nodded slowly. "I've worked here since the ribbon cutting. I've seen guests turned away for less. But I stayed, because I thought maybe it would change." She looked at Ava and said it clearly. "Maybe tonight is the start of that." Ava gave a small nod. "It is." Outside the conference room, whispers swirled. Just beyond the lobby, Mr. Whitaker stood tall in his beige coat. Grace, his granddaughter, stood beside him, nervous hands wringing her apron hem. Mr. Whitaker spoke softly when Ava approached. "She saw it all," he said, glancing toward Grace. "Didn't say a word last night, but she watched." Grace's voice was timid. I thought if I said something, they'd send me home. Ava didn't answer right away. She looked down at the napkin in Grace's hands, twisted tight, then back up. What's your name? Grace. You like working here? Grace hesitated. I did. Until I saw what they did, and how quiet everyone stayed. Ava read more in those few words than many ever spoke. Grace didn't want attention. She wanted permission to believe in something again. You don't need their silence, Ava said. You need your voice. Grace looked down. I don't want to lose this job. Then do it better than they ever expected. And don't forget what silence looks like, so you never wear it. Grace blinked, nodded once. Mr. Whitaker placed a hand on her shoulder, pride in his tired eyes. Last night, he said softly, I didn't speak because I thought I didn't matter. She reminded me I do. Ava smiled faintly. Then speak now, every time it counts. The door to the conference room opened. Marcus stepped out. Time! Ava turned, walking forward without pause. Grace followed. Richard stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back. Marcus gestured toward the long table. You've all been trained, he told the staff. You've all been reminded. But reminders don't reach hearts hardened by habit. He turned to Sharon. Effective immediately, administrative leave pending full review. Her clipboard hung limply in her grip. And Brent, Marcus continued, mandatory retraining, probation period. Whether you stay will depend on what you learn, not how long you've been here. No one questioned it. Ava turned to Miss Thelma. You're the only one tonight who passed the test. The older woman smiled softly. All I did was bring water. No, Ava said. You brought dignity. The conference room was quiet now. No voices, no excuses, just chairs pushed back slightly and the projector humming in still air. Ava stood alone at the head of the long table. Her fingertips brushed the polished wood, cool, clean, clinical. She stared at the condensation ring left by her untouched glass of water. It faded slowly, like resistance dissolving. She didn't need more meetings. She needed clarity. Stepping out into the hallway, her heels clicked with deliberate cadence. Marcus James met her at the elevator bank, tablet under his arm. Eyes sharp, yet thoughtful. You sure you want to do this part personally, he asked. Yes, Ava said. Simple? Final? He didn't ask why. He didn't need to. He just nodded. Downstairs, the lobby had shifted again. The air didn't hum anymore. It vibrated, quietly unsettled. Guests passed through cautiously, as if picking up on the tension left behind by last night's storm. Behind the desk, Brent stood tall, pale but no longer slouched. He saw her walk in and didn't look away this time. He stood straighter. Like he wanted her to see that he was still here trying. Officer Blake leaned against the far wall, radio silent. His posture more uncertain than protective. Sharon sat on a bench near the wall. No clipboard. No superiority, just tightly clasped hands and consequences wrapped in silence. Ava stepped to the center of the lobby. She didn't need to raise her voice. Everyone? Heads turned. Conversations hushed mid-sentence. The energy compressed, waiting. What happened last night? Her voice steady as stone. Wasn't rare, wasn't new, wasn't even shocking. That's what makes it dangerous. She turned slightly, locking eyes with Brent. You didn't see me. You saw a problem, to Officer Blake. You didn't assess, you presumed. Then to Sharon. And you didn't follow policy, you enforced your assumptions. No one argued. No one blinked. I didn't come here to embarrass you, or to punish. I came because this brand, this company was built on one word, respect. In the corner, Emily stepped out from the hallway, tablet clutched to her chest. Miss Thelma joined her quietly, sleeves rolled, hands still damp from cleaning, but her gaze burned brighter than anyone in the room. I didn't need you to know I was the CEO, Ava continued. I needed you to treat me like anyone else. And the fact that you didn't, she paused, it means we failed. Not just as staff, but as people. Richard Cole entered without a sound, standing by the far wall, his arms crossed, presence like punctuation. Next to him, Marcus James. Calm, ready. Ava let the weight hang. If you need a name tag, or a suit, or a title to offer someone dignity, you're in the wrong business. She turned toward the community board near the elevators. Normally, it held memos, supplier notes, and training schedules. From her coat pocket, she pulled out a folded ivory envelope. She pinned it gently in the center of the board, just one page, no logos, no headers, 12 centered words in black ink. Don't just train them to serve, teach them to see people. No one saw her place it. That wasn't the point. She stepped back, let it settle. Then walked through the cafe, past guests sipping espresso and couples huddled over croissants. No disruptions. No declarations. She wasn't checking anymore. She was absorbing. By noon, the staff gathered in the conference room again. This time, chairs were filled. No one leaned back. No one scrolled phones. Richard stood at the front, arms folded. Marcus tapped the projector to life. Still images appeared, security footage from the night before. Ava at the desk. Brent leaning away. Officer Blake tense, Sharon crossing her arms. No sound, but the truth didn't need audio. Ava faced them. This wasn't a one-time mistake. It was instinct muscle memory trained in bias. If it happened to me, it's probably happened to others who couldn't call for backup. Murmurs rippled. Eyes flicked toward Brent, then to the floor. We talk about professionalism, hospitality. But if those fall apart the moment a guest doesn't match your comfort zone, then we have no standard. Richard stepped forward. As of this morning, Sharon Owens is placed on indefinite suspension. She flinched, but said nothing. Security rotation will undergo full retraining. And Brent. The young man looked up. You are on 30-day probation. You will attend bias, respect, and professional empathy sessions. If you stay, it's because you earn the right to. Brent nodded, quiet but clear. I want to. Ava turned to Emily. Last night, you documented truth. Not for clicks, not for credit, because it was right. Emily sat frozen, tablet still in her lap. You've been offered a continued role with us, Ava added. You'll work directly with my office, guest experience auditing. If you accept. Emily's breath caught. Then she nodded, stunned but grateful. In the back, Miss Thelma stood. Voice steady. I've worked here since opening day. I've seen staff come and go. Good people get tired. Tired people get careless. She paused. But last night, I saw something else. I saw a leader stand her ground quietly. No yelling, no scene. Just truth. And for the first time in a long time, she finished, I was proud to wear this uniform. The room went still. Marcus stepped up. This isn't just a reset. It's a reckoning. From today on, he added, every employee across every Rowan property will be reminded, your bias is your liability. Ava looked around the room. Some heads bowed, others stared back ashamed, defensive or listening. But all of them were awake now. I didn't come here to fire people, she said. I came here to find out if this culture has roots. And it does, she added. But some of it still needs watering. Then she stepped back. No speech, no fanfare. Just change. As she exited, Brent stood a little taller. Emily followed quietly, clutching her tablet like a promise. Miss Thelma resumed cleaning, but this time she smiled. And for the first time that day, so did Ava. The conference room had emptied. Chairs were pushed back in quiet haste. The projector whirred into stillness, and yet the air remained dense thick with what had been revealed. Ava stood alone for a moment longer, Her hand hovered over the table's edge, then slowly dropped to her side. She stepped out into the hallway, heels soft against the floor, but every stride packed with the gravity of what had just unfolded. Marcus James was waiting by the exit, tablet closed, eyes sharp. "You sure you want to go back down?" "Absolutely," Ava said. "This doesn't end in a conference room." He nodded. No further questions. Downstairs, the lobby felt quieter than it had all morning. The marble floors had never looked cleaner, but even they couldn't reflect what had changed. This wasn't just about operations. It was about culture. It was about the echo of assumptions and how those echoes were finally being disrupted. Behind the desk, Brent stood stiff. He saw her approach, and this time didn't flinch. He didn't shrink, he didn't smile, he just stood there, facing whatever came next. Near the security podium, Officer Blake had both hands behind his back. No radio, no presence of power, just stillness. Sharon Owens sat farther away now, on the lobby bench near the window. No clipboard, no defense. Only folded hands and a gaze that hadn't moved since the meeting ended. Ava stepped fully into the space. She didn't announce herself. She didn't raise her chin. She just began speaking. What happened last night wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a mirror. All movement paused, eyes turned, not with fear, but with anticipation. A mirror that showed what we really are when we think no one's watching. She turned to Brent. "You didn't ask who I was. You assumed what I wasn't." To Officer Blake, "You didn't protect a guest. You controlled a situation you never assessed." Then to Sharon, "And you didn't question with care. You dismissed with certainty." She let it sink in. The quiet cracked a little deeper. "I didn't come here to make examples, but I also didn't come to let this pass." Emily had stepped out of the staff corridor. Miss Thelma joined her, hands no longer gloved, but still strong. Ava nodded to both in acknowledgement. Then she turned slightly and looked toward the wall where the laminated memos used to clutter the board. The ivory sheet still hung there. 12 words, centered. "Don't just train them to serve, teach them to see people." And for the first time that morning, Brent followed her gaze. He took a single step forward. "Ms. Carter," he said, his voice unsteady but clear. Ava looked at him directly. "I don't know how to undo what I did," he admitted, "but I want to." She nodded once. "Then start by remembering, this isn't about being perfect. It's about being aware." He nodded back, eyes stinging but steady. Sharon rose slowly from her bench, shoulders square, but her voice came small. "I thought I was doing the job, protecting the standards, the protocol." Ava held her gaze. "No," she said quietly. "You were protecting the comfort zone. And comfort isn't the standard." Sharon exhaled. "I see that now." "Then earn your way back by proving you've learned. No absolution. No public takedown. Just the truth and the chance to grow beyond it." She turned slightly to Officer Blake. His eyes met hers. "I'm not proud of how I handled it," he said. "I was trained to assess threats, but I didn't pause to think what kind of threat you weren't." Ava's face didn't soften, but she didn't look away. "People in uniforms carry more than authority. They carry history. And history remembers." He nodded once, slow and solemn. "I'll do better. Not because I was told to, but because I saw what I almost missed. And then something rare." From behind her, Miss Thelma's voice joined the moment. "Lot of folks think humility means saying sorry. But real humility is knowing your next step matters more than your last one." Brent looked over at her. So did Blake. So did Emily. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was sacred. Ava looked to Emily. "You kept the footage?" Emily nodded. "And you kept your integrity. You'll go far." Emily didn't speak, but the set of her shoulders said everything. Ava turned back to the group. You've all seen who I am now. You've read my title, heard my voice. But what matters, she added, is how you treat the next woman who walks through those doors in sneakers, with no title, no entourage, and the same quiet strength. No one responded. They didn't need to. The moment had already shifted them. Behind the front desk, Brent turned to his screen, hands steady now, eyes scanning without defensiveness. Sharon didn't sit back down. She stepped toward the front window and watched the city pass. Officer Blake unclipped his badge, not as an act of defiance, but of reflection. Ava watched it all. And finally, she allowed herself to breathe. She crossed the lobby one last time, heels soft now like punctuation marks, not warning shots. Miss Thelma followed at a respectful distance. At the elevator, Ava turned back one more time. They won't remember my name in every city, and that's fine, but they'll remember how it felt when the room changed. The elevator doors opened. She stepped inside. Emily stayed behind. So did Brent. So did the echo of Ava's voice, but what they carried now wasn't shame. It was possibility. The elevator ascended quietly, each floor passing like a breath she didn't realize she was holding. Inside, the mirrored walls reflected Ava, back at herself fractured, layered, still standing. She didn't flinch. She had no need to. Suite 1701 opened with a soft mechanical click. The room welcomed her not with warmth, but with curated distance. Polished, scented, staged. A luxury space designed to impress strangers. And she was a stranger here, too. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Charleston's skyline, lights blinking like fireflies, too far to catch. A city that slept peacefully, unaware of the storm that had just been calmed within its walls. Ava placed her phone on the desk, then sat. Not with poise, but with gravity. Her shoulders dropped slightly for the first time in hours, not from fatigue, but from honesty. She opened her laptop. The screen glowed pale blue. She didn't check email, didn't open a file. She started fresh, a blank document, and at the top, she typed, "Dear Mama." Her fingers paused, hovering like they were touching memory itself. Tonight I stood still. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I didn't plead for space in a building I built. I let them look at me and decide what I wasn't. Then I waited. And they learned. She inhaled, then typed again. "You used to say silence could be sharp. That it cuts deeper than words ever could. You were right. But Mama, tonight it didn't just cut them. It cut me too." Her eyes drifted to the window. The city didn't blink. It just watched. "It's exhausting, Mama. Carrying your composure like armor. Smiling so they don't call you bitter. Calming your tone so they don't call you angry. Standing your ground so they don't call you weak. Even when your name is on the deed." She leaned back. The leather chair creaked gently, the only sound in a room built to feel hushed. They looked at me and saw a threat, not a leader, not a woman, not a person. Just disruption. Her hands dropped to her lap for a moment. She didn't cry. That wasn't her way. Her mother had taught her that too, not because it was noble, but because the world too often mistook tears as surrender. But I stayed, and that means something. I stayed so that the next girl in sneakers and soft eyes doesn't have to prove herself to people who never asked their own hearts the right questions. A knock came at the door, soft, then silence. She waited. No second knock followed. She didn't check. She knew it wasn't room service. That knock wasn't real, but the pressure still was. Her fingers returned to the keyboard. And yet even now, I feel tired, not defeated. Just worn. This title gives me power, yes, but it doesn't protect me from the blindness people choose. The eyes that refuse to see, the ears that don't listen, the hearts that don't want to try. She stared at the blinking cursor as if it was daring her to continue. She did. I won't quit, Mama. But tonight, I needed to say the truth to someone before I went back to being unbreakable. She closed the laptop gently. She didn't save it. That message wasn't meant for anyone's inbox, just her own soul. She rose, walking slowly toward the window. The city looked softer now, less like something to conquer, more like something to outlast. Her reflection hovered beside the skyline. Still standing, still here. She rested her hand against the glass. Cool, grounding. That knock might not have been real, but everything else had been. The suspicion, the raised eyebrow, the soft snickers behind name tags. The quiet resistance of people unwilling to let go of what they thought power looked like. But it was over. Or maybe it had just begun. Tomorrow she'd return to emails, to numbers, to expansion plans and investor calls. But tonight she had allowed herself to be a person, not a brand. The kind of person her mother would have stood beside without question, without shame, with full pride. She whispered into the night, though no one was there to hear it. Thank you, Mama. I see you now more than ever. Then she pulled the curtain closed, not to block the world out, but to keep her peace in. The morning light filtered through the windows of Suite 1701, soft and unassuming, as if the city itself wanted to tread gently after the storm that passed through the night before. Ava Carter stood at the edge of the bed, already dressed in pressed black slacks and a white blouse that didn't need to announce authority, it embodied it. Her curls were pulled back into a low, smooth twist. Minimal. Controlled. Not for vanity, but for focus. She didn't wear perfume. She didn't carry a bag. She carried memory. The suite felt colder than it had the night before. Not in temperature, but in spirit. It had seen things, heard things, and now it stood still, like a witness. At exactly 8 o'clock a.m., her phone vibrated on the desk, because we're ready. They're gathering in the staff conference room. William's already here. HR just arrived. Ava responded with only 2 words, on my way. Downstairs, the lobby felt altered, like a photo that had been developed too long, its colors dulled, its shadows deeper. Guests moved through quickly, not rudely, but with a tension that hadn't been there yesterday. Behind the front desk, Brent stood alert, palms resting on the wood surface, his shoulders squared with intention. He made eye contact with Ava. A small nod passed between them, not of friendship, not of apology. Of readiness. Sharon Owens was nowhere in sight. Officer Blake stood farther back, not leaning this time, but upright watching, not guarding. Loretta pushed her cart slowly along the tile, her usual rhythm intact, but her gaze steadier. She saw Ava and nodded, not submissive. Not deferential, respectful, and Ava nodded back. The staff conference room was tucked behind the back office, usually reserved for orientation packets, quarterly updates, and vendor calls. But this morning, it had the energy of something sacred. William Langston stood near the front of the room. Arms crossed, back straight, face unreadable. Marcus James was already prepping a minimal presentation. No graphs, no charts, just truths. Emily sat alone in the back corner. Her hands rested in her lap. Her tablet was face down, but the responsibility it carried felt heavier than ever. The rest of the staff trickled in, some still pinning name tags, others avoiding eye contact. A few looked curious. Most looked nervous. Ava didn't sit. She stood before them like a steady flame. You all know who I am now, she began, but last night, most of you didn't. And that's exactly the point. No one interrupted. I came here unannounced because this brand was built on trust, and trust doesn't need a title to be treated well. Brent lowered his eyes. Emily sat up straighter. Marcus clicked the remote. The projector flickered to life, black and white stills from the previous night. Ava at the counter. Brent leaning away, Sharon with arms crossed, Officer Blake in a stiff stance. There was no sound, but the silence said enough. This wasn't a one-time slip, Ava continued. This was instinct. And if that instinct was triggered by my skin, my sneakers, my silence, then that instinct is broken. Murmurs. Small ones. No arguments, just the ripple of reality sinking in. William stepped forward. As of this morning, Sharon Owens is on indefinite suspension. Security will be rotated and retrained. Brent is on a 30-day probation with mandatory professionalism and empathy training. No gasps. Just silence. Acceptance. Ava raised her hand gently. No one here is being punished for asking questions, but you are being held accountable for how you asked them and why. She turned toward Emily. Last night, you recorded what many would have ignored. Not for fame, but for truth. That's integrity. Emily blinked. You've been invited to stay on. Your role going forward will be guest experience auditing directly under my office. She nodded. A mix of pride and fear flickered across her face. But she didn't say no, and that was enough. Then came Loretta. She cleared her throat gently. Everyone turned. I've worked here since day one. And I've seen good people mess up, and bad ones get away with it. She paused. But last night, I saw someone stand their ground without screaming, without throwing anything, without demanding titles. She looked at Ava. And I remembered why I said yes to this job in the first place. The room stayed quiet, but the air began to breathe again. Marcus stepped in. This isn't just a reset, it's a reckoning. He paused. And from now on, every employee across every Rowan hospitality property will be reminded your bias is your liability. Your silence is your choice. Ava scanned the room, eyes locked. Some met hers. Some couldn't. But all were awake now. I didn't come here to fire people, she said softly. I came to find out if the culture we built had roots. It does, she added, but it still needs watering. Then she stepped back. William took her place. Mandatory debriefings start at noon. Training begins at 2. The hotel will continue to operate, but it will not operate unchanged. Ava turned to go. She didn't need applause. She needed actions. And as she passed the front desk again, Brent stood tall. Not in defense, but in responsibility. Emily followed behind her, tablet tucked close, shoulders set. Loretta resumed cleaning, but this time with a small smile. Not of victory, but of alignment. And for the first time that morning, Ava smiled too. The conference room had cleared out. The chairs had been pushed back, the screen dimmed to black. But Ava remained. She stood alone near the long table, her fingers resting on the polished wood. Not lingering. Not reflecting, just present. Marcus waited just outside the door. Tablet under his arm, expression unreadable but respectful. You want me to escort you out? Ava shook her head. Not yet. She walked slowly into the hallway. The lights hummed softly above her. Staff voices had quieted now, most tucked into training rooms or shift rotations, but the heartbeat of the hotel still pulsed. Not in the marble floors or chandelier reflections, but in the people. She turned a corner toward the service corridor. It smelled faintly of floor wax, citrus, and memory. At the end of it stood Grace, still in uniform, hands nervously gripping a folded napkin. She didn't speak as Ava approached. She just looked up with unsure eyes. Ava stopped in front of her. Did you sleep? Grace shook her head. No, ma'am. I couldn't. Why? Grace glanced down. I kept thinking maybe I should have said something sooner. That maybe I froze because I thought I'd be punished for speaking up. Ava nodded slowly. And now? Grace met her eyes again. Now I know silence is louder than I thought. Ava's gaze softened. You saw what happened? And that means you carry it now. Not as guilt, but as fuel. Grace's fingers unclenched just slightly. You ever been told you were too quiet? Ava asked. Grace smiled faintly. All the time. Good, Ava said. That means when you speak, people pay attention. From the hallway behind them, Mr. Whitaker appeared, Grace's grandfather. He walked slowly, but with dignity stitched into every step. He nodded politely. Ma'am, he said. You don't have to call me that, Ava replied. He smiled, his voice warm but gravelly. Maybe not, but respect isn't for titles. It's for choices. He turned to Grace. You told her yet? Grace blinked. Told me what? Ava asked. Grace swallowed. I want to stay. I want to learn. But I don't want to be like the ones who looked away. Ava stepped closer. Then don't. She pulled a small envelope from her pocket. No logo, no heading. Just Grace's name, handwritten. Inside was an offer. A rotating mentorship 3 months at 3 Rowan properties. Front desk, guest relations and training design. Earn it, Ava said. Then teach it. Grace opened the envelope slowly, like it might vanish if she blinked too fast. Why me? She whispered. Ava smiled faintly. Because you didn't move when it was easier to disappear. And because I see pieces of someone I used to be before the suits, before the boardrooms. Mr. Whitaker stepped back, eyes glassy but proud. You got a good eye, he said. She's always seen more than people gave her credit for. Grace looked up, hope and responsibility colliding in her chest. I won't waste this. You better not, Ava said. But if you do, make sure it teaches you something. Just then, Emily turned the corner, tablet clutched under one arm. She slowed when she saw Ava, then Grace. Ava motioned her closer. Both of you, she said, will be working in the same unit opposite ends of the same lens. One watches, one trains, and both remember what it felt like to be invisible. Emily nodded quietly. Grace exhaled, the folded napkin still in hand. Drop that, Ava said, nodding to it. Grace looked down, saw the wrinkled cloth in her fingers, an old instinct of stress and silence. She tossed it gently into the nearby bin. A small act, but powerful. They walked together toward the rear exit of the staff hallway. On the way, they passed a wall with faded photographs from the hotel's opening day. Sharon was in one. So was Tom and Brent, but not Miss Thelma. Not Loretta, not any of the invisible pillars. Emily paused. Will these ever change? Ava looked at the photos. Yes, but not because we tear them down. Because we build new ones where everyone's in the frame. Outside, the sun had risen higher. Charleston was breathing again. Tourists strolled. Luggage wheels clicked on pavement. But inside the hotel, a culture had quietly turned a corner, and Ava Carter, quiet, composed, still had once again reminded them, change doesn't knock. It walks in wearing sneakers, waits patiently by the counter, and watches who looks up first. It started small. A quiet post from an intern's private account. Just 46 seconds, no caption, no hashtags. Just an upload. A woman at a front desk, a voice calm but firm. A security guard shifting forward, a manager's clipped tone, then silence. But silence is never silent on the internet. By noon, the video had 3,000 views. By evening, it passed 150,000. And by the time Ava Carter stepped into her office at Rowan Hospitality's headquarters the next morning, it had hit 2.1 millions. The subject line in her inbox read, "You're trending? Do you want to respond?" She didn't. Not yet. She closed the email, leaned back in her chair, and stared out the window. The city was bustling as usual. Cars, Horns, deadlines, coffee cups. But none of that noise matched the storm she now had to manage again. Marcus James knocked once, then entered. He held his tablet against his chest like a shield. "You've seen it?" "Yes," she said. He waited. Then carefully. "It's being framed as a power move. Some are calling you a silent hero. Others are calling for heads to roll." Ava didn't flinch. "I didn't do it to trend." "I know," he said. "But the world doesn't care about your reasons. They care about the story." She turned away from the window. "The story is truth. Everything else is commentary." Marcus offered a weak smile. "The shareholders want a meeting. PR wants a strategy. Legal wants to know what we can redact. And Twitter wants justice in 280 characters or less." Ava exhaled slowly. "Call William. Schedule the board for noon." Marcus nodded. "And press?" "Nothing yet. Let them talk." He turned to go. "And Marcus?" He stopped. "Tell them I'm not hiding." 3 hours later, Ava stood at the head of the conference table. 12 screens lit up. 12 executives across cities, countries, time zones. Some looked tired. Others looked concerned. Not because of what happened, but because the world now knew it happened. William Langston sat beside her in person, arms crossed. "Steady." The first voice came from Chicago. "Ava, we support your values, but this is becoming a PR liability." Then London. "If we don't issue a formal distancing statement, we'll lose some of our luxury brand contracts." Then Los Angeles. "Can we spin this into a diversity initiative?" Ava didn't speak. She waited. The voices kept coming. Words like optics, damage control, internal memo, neutral messaging. And then came Ava's voice. Quiet, unhurried. "If you think this is about PR, then you've learnt nothing from the tape." Silence. "I didn't ask to go viral. I asked to be respected. And when I wasn't, I stood still so the truth could speak." Another voice chimed in. "But Ava, this could become a bigger brand conversation than we're ready for." "Then maybe," she said, "our brand wasn't built on anything real." William's brow lifted slightly, but he didn't interrupt. "I'm not issuing a statement," she continued. "I'm issuing a standard. You want to know what we tell the press?" She stood straighter. "Tell them that every Rowan property is now required to do 3 things effective immediately. Bias response training every 6 months. Anonymous guest audit every quarter. Internal video reviews randomly selected, reviewed by independent staff. And one more thing," she added. "If anyone treats a guest like they treated me, they're gone." No warnings. An exec in New York groaned. "You're opening us up to liability." Ava smiled faintly. "No. I'm closing the door on excuses." She ended the call. Outside her office, Emily was waiting with her tablet. Her cheeks were flushed. "They're using my footage on 3 national news sites, and BuzzFlash called me the quiet lens that sparked a storm." Ava tried not to smile. "Good name," Emily swallowed. "Was I wrong to post it?" Ava looked her in the eye. "You were brave, and brave is never wrong." Emily hesitated. "They're offering interviews, articles, a speaking slot at a university panel." "And what do you want?" Ava asked. Emily paused. "I want to keep learning. I want to stay in the work. Then speak when you're ready. Not when they shout." Emily nodded slowly. "Thank you for not being mad." Ava stood. "Truth doesn't offend me. Only lies do." That night, Ava returned home later than usual. She kicked off her shoes, poured a glass of water, and sat in silence. No laptop, no phone, just the soft hum of her refrigerator and the distant rhythm of a world that had been cracked open and was now watching itself more closely. She opened her journal, wrote 6 words. The camera caught what they couldn't, and then, after a pause, "Now, let them see." The buzz had faded. Not gone entirely, but softened, like the hum of a machine that finally found its rhythm. The video had plateaued at 4.7 million views. News outlets had moved on to louder stories. The hotel had returned to function, but not to habit. Something had shifted. Not in slogans, not in signage, but in how people looked at one another. The Fairline Charleston lobby, once a curated display of modern elegance, now carried something else. Attention? No. A memory. Loretta pushed her cart across the tile, pausing near the front desk. Brent looked up and nodded this time first. "Morning," he said. She smiled. "Better one than yesterday." "Trying." "That's all we asked for," she said. "And yesterday, no one was asking." She rolled away. But not before he said softly, "Thank you, Miss Thelma." She turned, eyes crinkled. "Didn't think you knew my name. I do now." In the staff lounge, Pamela adjusted her intern badge. Still not confident enough to wear it proudly, but no longer trying to hide it. On the table sat a folder, Guest Observation Audit, Draft 1. Beside her, Grace scrolled through guest feedback forms. She paused on one from room 1702. "Please tell the young woman with the tight ponytail that her kindness made the check-in feel like home." Grace tilted her screen toward Pamela. "That's you, isn't it?" Pamela flushed. "Could be either of us." "Good," Grace said. "Let's make that the goal." Upstairs, Ava Carter stood outside Suite 1701. This time she wasn't checking in. She wasn't testing. She was saying goodbye. The suite door was open. Inside, the lights dimmed, the scent neutral, everything in order. A clipboard rested on the desk. A new checklist titled Dignity First Protocols. Author, Ava Carter. Review, Quarterly Ownership, Shared. She didn't need to sign it. Everyone knew who wrote it. Downstairs, in the boardroom, a new photo had been framed. It wasn't of executives. It wasn't of ribbon cuttings. It was of the lobby the night Ava stood at the counter, Loretta behind her, Pamela off to the side. Brent mid-sentence, Sharon frozen. It wasn't polished. It wasn't staged, but it was real. Beneath it, "This is who we are, when no one's watching." A week later, Ava stood at a university in Atlanta. Not for press, not for applause. She was speaking to a class of future hoteliers. Students with bright eyes, big questions, and no clue how quiet power could be. One asked, "How do you know when the culture is really changing?" Ava thought for a moment. "When the quietest person in the room no longer looks down, and when the loudest one starts listening." Back at the Fairline, a young guest checked in. Travel-worn, no makeup. Single suitcase, late arrival. Brent smiled first. "Welcome to Fairline. What's your name?" She hesitated. "Does it matter?" He grinned. "It matters that you're here." And for the first time since he started the job, he meant it. That night, Ava wrote her final entry. She didn't type. She didn't dictate. She wrote it by hand, on the last page of her mother's old notepad. "I didn't change the world, Mama. I just reminded a few people how to see it. And maybe, just maybe, that's how it starts." She folded the page, placed it in the jar above her fridge. The one marked, "Own Something." And this time, what she owned wasn't a building. It was the moment, the echo, the legacy, not of a CEO, but of a woman who stood still so the truth could move. In a world that often rewards noise and status, Ava Carter's story reminds us that true power lies in quiet dignity. When others judged her by appearance, when they dismissed her with assumptions, Ava didn't fight back with anger. She stood her ground with grace. She let their actions reveal more about them than words ever could. This isn't just a story about business or authority. It's about what happens when you choose to see people, not label them. For older viewers who've lived through decades of social change, this story echoes a timeless truth. Real transformation doesn't always come through outrage. It comes through steady, principled presence. The message is clear. Treat everyone with respect, whether they wear a name badge or sign your paycheck. And when the world tries to shrink you, let your stillness be your statement. Because sometimes the most lasting change begins not with shouting, but with someone finally standing still and being seen.